You ready to do this?
I'm
finally?
ready. This has been. Yeah. It's like, been what? 3 weeks?
3 weeks in between part 1 and part 2 for us. Not a good.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what my thoughts on part 1 were. Welcome to Flunking the Written, a fully spoiled Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast in which two Uber fans break down every episode of the show. Join Kimberly and Megan every other Tuesday as they overanalyze each scene and discuss the Buffyverse at large. Now let's meet up with the Scoobies and get into this episode of Flunking the Written.
What can I say? I flunked the written.
Alright, Kim, we have made it at last to becoming part 2, which was written and directed by Joss Whedon. And the blurb is, while Angel tortures Giles for needed information concerning a ritual, Spike strikes an unlikely alliance with Buffy to keep Angel from destroying the world.
Oh, accurate.
Yes, it is
Pretty accurate.
Again, spoiler-ridden. Stop! So we have what I call the no-chill start. It is freeze shouted by the cop just as the last episode ended.
Yeah, it starts out right where the last one ended.
And it is intense.
Yeah, we should point out this is a favorite of the majority of fans. Mm-hmm. I think this makes the top 10 episode list for just about everybody.
Yeah. But man, it starts rough.
Yeah. 2 police officers come in and, well, just don't act anything like police would act.
Yeah, like, these are not cops. And the only thing, like, I can kind of, like, headcanon to justify it is that these are, like, the mayor's cops, because obviously the mayor is a featured part of this episode in its foreshadowing. So you could kind of justify that these are, for some reason, manipulated to be this type of cop. But this is not how cops act.
Yes, but and you could think that because why are they even there? Like, how did they even know?
Yeah. And Snyder's there. Like, it seems very orchestrated.
Did someone call Snyder to tell him? Is someone following Angel? Or did Angel call? Did Drusilla call? Is someone being followed? Are they following Buffy? Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Which I think it is confirmed in season 3 that the mayor was definitely, like, watching all of this go down in season 2. Was definitely, like, aware of all of the shenanigans that happened in season 2 because he was watching it. So it is very likely
he probably
that
sent them.
Orchestrated by him. But yeah, these cops are so over the top.
They don't even try to detain her. They're just immediate, like, you're under arrest.
Yeah.
When she takes out front and attempt to shoot her.
Yeah.
And then they put out a warning about she's extremely dangerous.
She's so dangerous.
They don't know that.
Oh,
yeah, I've got in my notes that they're not exactly following procedure.
I will have a lot to say about the cops in this episode. Like, every time there's cops on the screen, you're just like, wow, those are intense cops. So while Buffy's in there, she discovers that Kendra is confirmed dead by the police and Xander is unconscious across the room. She's going to try to help him when she's pulled out, nearly arrested, but she hits the cop and runs away as a cop calls her in as being extremely dangerous. Snyder's there. Snyder exists in this episode in a very, like, Snyder way.
Yes.
I think this is the most Snyder. Like, if I was gonna pick one episode to really show what Snyder is like, I'm just like, just watch this, like, scene later in this episode, because it is just the most Snyder has ever been.
Yeah, he had a line that they took out in the
really?
script book. He says, when she hits the cop, when he's trying to handcuff her, and she turns, Snyder, like, shrinks back against the wall and says, I'm just a civil servant. And she just, ignores him and runs past.
What a garbage man. I love him so much. That's the thing about Snyder. Like, every time he's on the screen, I'm like, you're a garbage person. God, I love you.
He thinks he has a lot of power that he does not have. Okay, so she runs out, and then we get the theme song. And then our next scene is Buffy in disguise.
She has a hat on. No one can tell who she is.
No, cannot tell who she is. She enters the hospital and sees Xander, and they have a little conversation, catching each other up, and Buffy finds out that Willow was hurt and is still unconscious. Mm-hmm. There's this one scene where he grabs her and hugs her while cops walk by, but that's pretty much it there.
Yeah. So here's what I noted in this whole like sequence from when, you know, Buffy makes the joke about Xander hugging her to like into the next scene, and them talking about Willow and her trauma, and Cordelia coming back, is like the weight of this is super, super heavy. The way in which they deliver the Xander being Xander joke, and then it immediately transitions to where Xander's like the sad, serious face, and Buffy realizes Xander has so many times used humor to kind of deflect the severity of what's going on. And so the fact that Buffy's the one that suggests the inappropriate joke and Xander's just not into it at all, and then it goes into that transition of Willow and all of the trauma that these kids have experienced due to this attack, really works for me. Because they've spent so long setting up Xander as being the one who makes jokes at inappropriate times, and here Xander can't. He like physically can't like get on board with this silly joke that Buffy like sets him up for. And when we cut to Willow and you realize that, yeah, Willow's in a serious condition right now and may never wake up, I just like, anytime this show wants to make you feel how bad a situation can be, they can just put Willow in danger or in some kind of pain or suffering, and you're just like, this is it. This is the worst.
Yeah, not Willow.
Anybody but Willow. Why? Why would you hurt my Willow?
Buffy asks if Oz knows, and Xander had forgotten to call Oz and says he'll go do that. And then Cordelia comes in and basically says that I just kept running. Mm-hmm. And then something really strange happens. And Xander asks her, did Giles keep up with you? And in what universe would Giles ever run in a situation like that and leave Willow and Xander and Kendra by themselves? Like, that would never happen.
I didn't do it, but I wanted to go and like rewatch that fight scene, because I'm pretty sure Xander would have been kind of aware where Giles was in relation to Cordelia when all of that was happening, and realized that Giles did not escape with Cordelia anyway. So like, it just doesn't make sense based on what happened that Xander did see, but it also doesn't make sense in the grander scheme of things if that's not something that Giles would do.
No, he would never. And I'm not sure why. It's just accepted that they all think that since he's not there, he must have ran.
Yeah, there's a couple things in this episode that, I mean, the episode's so good. We talked about it at the front, and the episode's so good. But there's just a couple things every now and again I'm just like, oof, that was just like there to serve a very specific purpose and doesn't really make sense. And this is one of them, like, you know, just like setting up like, where's Giles? And then of course we cut to Giles. And like they do that a few times throughout this episode. What I will say is that the little exchange between Xander and Cordelia when Cordelia first enters the room is probably the most genuine I've seen those two as a couple. It's just such a like tender, sweet moment. And yeah, I do like that there is a real bond felt amongst these characters. And man, the Oz bit. Do we want to talk about the Oz bit? The Oz bit is kind of an interesting thing because Oz isn't really fully integrated into the group yet.
Yeah.
This, I think, is the episode where that happens. You know, this is when
I agree, because when the new season starts, he's like a regular Scooby.
Mm-hmm. But he's not quite there until this episode, I don't think. And like, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, there's reasons why Xander might have not thought to call Oz beyond just the fact that he's not one of the core group yet. But the truth of the matter is, Oz isn't until this episode. He's not a core member of the group yet, and this is his moment. He'll get there. He'll cast some spells and do some rituals. I like the casual, like, explanation of why Willow's parents aren't there as well.
Yeah. They're catching a flight back.
Like, honestly, this show has gotten to the point where they could have not mentioned Willow's parents at all, and I would have just accepted it.
Yeah, I would have to.
Like,
but at least they mentioned it.
At least they mentioned it. At least they made effort. So Buffy has this notion that the reason that they were attacked was because somehow Angel knew about the curse. And they attacked to prevent the curse. Which, I know we talk about Buffy often being right. This is an instance where Buffy was definitely off, because why wouldn't they have just killed Willow in that situation? I mean, why didn't they just kill Willow in this situation, honestly? But if that was the reasoning, why wouldn't they finish the job? But yeah, like, it is the realization when Xander asks about Giles. There's just some awkward stuff in this scene. Like, truthfully, isn't there? There's some awkward stuff about asking about Giles running with Cordelia, and then that's when I guess Buffy realizes that Angel may not have been in the library because of the curse at all, or, you know, that may have not been the plan there. But, yeah, like, I just feel like, as much as I love this episode, there's a lot of things in this episode that are just there to set up transitions or to explain why people are at places later in the episode.
So they end that scene with wondering where Giles is. Then we go to Giles, who is laying on the floor, waking up, and Angel is laying near him, says hi. And he is planning to torture Giles to find out how he can wake up Akafa. Mm-hmm. Giles asks him, "What do you want?" And he says,
"I want to torture you. I used to love it, and it's been a long time. I mean, the last time I tortured somebody, they didn't even have chainsaws."
Chainsaws don't seem like the best tool for the job.
Yeah, no. I don't know how you would get information out of somebody when you taking a chainsaw to them.
But yeah, I do like this bit of acting from David. I love the way he's laying down next to Giles, and like the giddiness in how he is almost approaching Giles at times as if he is a child. Like, there's just a little bit of that, which, you know, Angel is in fact quite a bit older than Giles, but like there's just like a way he's talking about some of the things, and especially later on when he's like putting on Giles's glass, like he's got like that tenderness and friendliness to him, that charming side, that charismatic side, while he's threatening to, and in fact later actually torturing Giles. And I think it's a beautiful balance.
And Giles, in true Giles fashion, attempts to escape, elbowing a vampire face, and Drusilla stops him. And then Angel says they're going to start with fingers.
Does that happen in the episode? That doesn't happen.
Does that not happen?
I don't think that happens. I think that's cut out.
Well, it has been like a month since I watched for this. I am very sorry. Okay, so in the episode, he doesn't do this, but in the script, he tries to escape by hitting the vampire in the face with his elbow, and he takes off, and Drusilla catches him and brings him back. So, and then Angel says, "Okay, where do we start?" Ooh, fingers.
Yeah, no, that is a Giles thing to do. I like the way that the scene ends. The scene actually ends with Angel just saying, "Because I really want to torture you," but also like anytime I get to see Giles in action, I'm there for it. So I would have liked that scene. Yeah.
Then we cut to Buffy's house, and the police are talking to Joyce.
This is such an awkward scene.
Yeah. And Joyce has to explain she has no idea where her daughter is. And then the detective, in a very condescending way, says, in the script, this part is not actually in the episode, he says, "Do you always let your daughter stay out this late?"
Oh. And
Joyce answers with, "Well, no, she goes out. I can't always keep track, but..." And then we move to what was actually in the scene. And she says that she was going to sleep over at Willow's house. And the detective mentions that was the second victim.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he would do that.
I don't think, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's some pretty strict policies about releasing the names of minors at crime scenes, and really anybody, but like especially minors. But then he goes on to talk about Buffy's history of violence. And then he, like, even, like, smirks as he tells Joyce to call them if Buffy shows. Like, it's just, like...
If she decides to come home.
Like, what a awful cop. And the only way I can deal with this, if I headcanon it, to say that, like, they're just being, like, chocked full of some kind of weird drug or magic boost thing to make them super aggro against Buffy for whatever purpose the mayor has cooked up, because these cops make no sense.
No, they really don't. And it's very obvious that they are doing this on the orders of somebody.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Giles' apartment, and Buffy comes in looking for Giles, and Whistler appears again. Whistler could have been so much more in these episodes. I don't think they gave him enough scenes.
Yeah.
Enough parts of everything.
Spoiler, I'm pretty sure he returns in the comics.
Does he?
Yes. But, yeah, he's an interesting character, and we did talk kind of like the weird transference that happens where Whistler kind of becomes Doyle almost. They're very similar characters in their relationship to both the powers that be and Angel, and that kind of go-between. But, yeah, Whistler, I like Whistler all right, but he's just a little too sleazy for me. Because the fact that he starts off by telling Buffy that he needs a date to the prom, I'm just like, really? You're the worst guy.
Well, no, I didn't see that as he was hitting on Buffy. I thought it was just being funny.
Yeah, but it's not even like, he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
He knows what Buffy's going through. Now, even Xander got it. Even Xander understood now is not the time for jokes.
In the script, when he says, because I need a date for the prom, he's got a line right after that was cut.
Okay, what is that?
Where he says, because I need a date for the prom. My mother says I may attend, but no fondle.
There you go.
And that's when Buffy pushes him against the wall. And I love her little speech here.
Yeah.
If you have information worth hearing, then I am grateful for it. If you're going to crack jokes, then I'm going to pull out your ribcage and wear it as a hat.
Hello to the imagery. Very nice.
And then Whistler basically is like, this wasn't supposed to happen. We thought he would be the hero on this day. He says that he thought that Angel was going to stop Akafla, not bring him in. Mm-hmm. You two made with the Spoochies, and now he's a creep again. There's some lines that Buffy has that were cut where she basically is like, we didn't know. And Whistler says, hey, not here to judge. Body like yours, I'd pretty much give up my soul for a shot at that too. And then
just a little bit too much of a sleaze.
Yeah. He says, but it took Angel off the roster, which puts you on the spot in a big way. Mm-hmm. And then he has the, what are you prepared to do line.
Yeah.
They cut out some of the sleazier lines of
some of the Sid the Dummy lines are cut out.
Yeah.
He has this line, Whistler does, where he's talking about prophecies being tricky. And again, it's interesting because when you look at the way that they're like, oh, this is going to be Angel's big day, he's going to stop a Kathleen, it turns out he's actually bringing him forth. The way that the Shanshu prophecy is written later on, we also understand that we don't really know in that prophecy if he's going to be pulling for the good guys or the bad guys. That's also worded in such a way that it could be either way. So it's interesting that they're already kind of setting up some stuff that's going to pay off later in this idea of how prophecies are just there to mess you up, basically. You think you know what a prophecy's going to do, and it does the opposite.
I wonder if they knew this early that they would get Angel his own show.
I know that they started having the idea that he could do it, that the actor could pull it off, but I don't know if they even were close to getting it started as far as plotting out anything. But I think, like, Whistler in a lot of ways feels like a setup to the start of Angel. And I talked about this, I think, in Becoming Part 1. Again, it's been a very long time since we recorded that episode. But
yes.
I think I talked about this, about how people a lot of times will talk about amends in season 3 being like Angel episode 0, right? The pre-pilot episode. But I think Becoming Part 1 is really that. Like, it really is about Angel. And this episode is really about Buffy's becoming and that story of hers. So
a lot of people like the men's episode, and it is one of my least favorites.
Oh.
We'll get there.
So yeah, then he says, what are you prepared to do? Prepared to give up? And she has another section here of how she's like, she's just tired of fighting on her own. And he's just like, but you're always alone in the end. You're all you've got. A little on the nose with that writing, huh?
Yeah. some foreshadowing. Then she walks out and he kind of calls after her, the sword isn't enough. You got to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't like try to go after her or anything. It's like he stands rooted to the spot.
Yeah.
He's trying to be like, you got to know how to use it. And he's all sad.
Whistler's such
But
an
he
odd
doesn't
character.
he doesn't try to go after her.
No, like, he's just like, nah, she'll come around. She'll come back. She'll talk to me again later. I'm just gonna keep stealing stuff from her watcher.
Was he actively stealing stuff?
I mean, he was going through and drinking all of his stuff.
Oh, good point. So then we've got Buffy walking on the street, and all of a sudden, a cop, hold it, hands in the air, and points a gun at her, and he starts moving toward her, and Spike shows up. And hits him unconscious and flips him over.
I could hear the smile. Spike shows up.
In my notes, I just have yay. This is the very first time Spike and Buffy ever worked together.
Yes. It is great. They immediately, like, Buffy immediately starts attacking him. He pushes her away. She pulls a stake. He calls white flag. And then, like, just this lovely back and forth where he just is, if you want to take out Angel, we're going to have to work this a little differently. And Buffy, rightly so, is just like, this is a really lame trick. But Spike is there knowing again the exact buttons to push to make Buffy know what the stakes are really here, and says that Angel has Giles and is probably torturing him as they speak.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, you got this lovely moment. I'll play the sound clip, I'm sure.
We like to talk big. Vampires do. I'm going to destroy the world. It's just tough guy talk. Strutting around with your friends over a pint of blood. The truth is, I like this world. You've got dog racing, Manchester United, and you've got people. Billions of people walking around like Happy Meals with legs. It's all right here.
The Happy Meals with Legs speech is great, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Except, what about the judge? Like, he was perfectly happy to destroy the world with the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the philosophy that I equate with Spike, and all those parts that were out of character, I'm just like, those don't exist.
Right. She says she doesn't believe him, and he says, I want Drew back, and makes a comment about how Drew acts around Angel. And then Buffy says, you're pathetic, and then they punch each other a couple of times and then finish the conversation.
Yes.
Which is very similar to how they act with each other in seasons 4 and 5.
Yeah. The little exchange of Buffy saying, I hate you, and Spike replying, and I'm all you've got, is such a great summation of their relationship.
Yeah, I love that line because it's true right now, and he's always real blunt with her and honest with her.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is how it is though, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Although in the script book she doesn't say I hate you, she says you're a killer.
Oh.
It's a little different.
A little different, yeah. I like I hate you. I don't like I hate you as much as I violently dislike you, which we get to later in the series. That is my perfect.
Yeah.
That is like, mwah, chef's kiss. But I like I hate you, and I'm all you've got. That just little exchange is so delightful for me. But yeah, and then he's just like, okay, well, let me just kill this cop real quick. And of course, Buffy corrects him. And then they walk away.
Yeah.
So, what are our feelings on this next scene, Kim?
I didn't really have a lot to say about this scene because it could be taken several different ways.
Yeah, that's the thing.
My only note is that they send Cordelia to fetch a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she fetches things a lot.
Well, she offers this time.
Yeah, we're back in the hospital, and Cordelia offers to go get coffee. And when she leaves, Xander takes Willow's hand. She's still unconscious and starts talking about how much he needs her and how much he loves her and basically says, I love you. And she squeezes his hand and he looks at her all excited and she says, Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this could, at that moment, Oz walks in, but I think what Xander did can be taken. I see it 2 different ways. And honestly, sometimes it just depends on what mood I'm in when I'm watching the show, where he's basically just poured his heart out to her as his best friend, that he can't do this without his best friend, and he loves her.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's confessing romantic love for her, and that her getting injured was what it took for him to realize it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I do love her.
So,
but then Oz walks in. Before anything else happens.
Here's the, reading that I feel the most at this moment. I'm kind of like you. I could see this going a lot of different ways. And I honestly think that this scene really shows just how much power the direction of a scene, the way it's portrayed, the way the actors make their choices, and the way it's edited can really, really change the feel of this. Because this could definitely be a friendship love, I can't live without you, you're my best friend, or it could be a romantic love. But it's played in such a way that there is this moment, like you said, where in the actual confession part, it feels more like friendship love, what he's talking about. Like, he's just like, I call you every night, you're my best friend, how am I going to pass trig? All of this kind of like friendship stuff. And then he gets to this moment that he pauses and then says, I love you. And then there's this twitch and he gets excited, but then she says Oz's name. And it's the look on Xander's face that it's almost like a realization that what he just confessed wasn't just friendship love. But in the moment of confessing, it's it's in the moment of saying I love you. I think even in that moment, it was still friendship love. But when he hears her say Oz's name in reply instead of his, that was when he was just like, oh.
Yeah, wait a second.
Yeah.
And at that point, Oz walks in and says, I'm here. And they have a very cute scene, which is basically all that Oz and Willow do, is have little cute scenes. He asks her how she feels, and she said, my head feels big. Is it big? And then he says, no, it's head-sized. I love it. Then Willow asks about everybody else.
Yes.
And they cut away because, there's a lot to tell.
Cuts to Giles's hands, bound and bloody, and Angel is casually sitting across from him, cleaning his glasses. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Man. Weird Angel's sitting there cleaning his glasses and talking about how impressed he is with Giles, and then he goes and puts the glasses back on. I don't know why this is, but I freaking love torture scenes, and it makes me concerned about myself. But anytime I watch these scenes, I immediately start thinking about, the Wesley Faith scenes later in Angel, and I'm just like, man, those scenes are so good. These scenes are so good. Why do I like these scenes? And it's just, I think the interesting part, the crunchy bits is that one, it shows Angel as this, just truly how sadistic he is. And this is the true Angel, the true Angelus here is this torturing and delighting in the torture, and even delighting that his torture victim is strong enough to not break, he's excited about that in a way, because he gets to torture him more. This is what Angelus is to me. The bringing forth the Kathla, the hot-headed, crazed, I'm gonna destroy the world kind of vampire. That's not who Angelus is. This scene is so Angelus, and it's so good. Taking the time to clean your torture victim's glasses so you can put them back on. That's an artist. Yeah. Is something wrong with me? Should I not like these scenes as much as I do?
It's a really good and powerful scene. I enjoy it.
Okay, cool. It's not just me. I also love when Drusilla tortures Angel earlier in this season. I love those scenes. She's pouring the holy water on him. Yes.
So the next scene, we are at Buffy's house, and it seems that Joyce has gone to look for Buffy. Mm-hmm. As she pulls up in the car. And she's like, Buffy. And basically, the police were here. I've been looking for you. And Buffy tries to get her inside. And then they make up a story about being in a band, and Spike is shocked that Buffy's mom doesn't know. And there's a really funny thing when they tell her that Buffy plays the drums, and Joyce says, "And what do you do?" And he says, "Well, I sing." Like, yes, you do.
Oh, it's great. No,
I think that's funny.
It's so here's the thing, though. Joyce is, like, legitimately frantic at the front end when she, like, pulls in. And then it gets to, like, this, like, joke about Buffy and Spike being in a band, and Joyce has kind of got the face of oh yeah, that's a terrible lie, you know, you're trying to pull one over on me kind of mom look is the way that she chooses to play it. But literally, like, Buffy's being accused of murder right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time where Joyce wouldn't be like, you know, I've got a bad feeling of this. Like, Joyce would be like, what the hell is actually going on?
Yeah.
Like, she's a little aggressive like that at the front end, but she's not nearly as aggressive as I think she should have been.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I agree. And then a vampire jumps out at them, and Buffy dusts him right in front of Joyce. And Joyce is like, Buffy, what's going on? And Buffy says, Mom, I'm a vampire slayer.
Yes. Let me talk for a second.
Okay.
I need to express my feelings. First off, what the hell was this vampire's plan?
Yeah, attacking the Slayer and Spike.
And then
why didn't the vampire just go back to Angel?
And then they have this exchange. They're like, oh, he was spying on us. I'm like, why was he attacking them?
Yeah.
You didn't catch him. He jumped out at you. So anyway, that's done. But then, like, so you mentioned, like, this is the first time that we see, like, Buffy and Spike work together. This is the first time that we see Buffy and Spike fight together. And man, are they in sync. Like, instantly.
Oh, yeah. That gives me chills.
Handily, like, she sets up the vamp, Spike gets a few licks in, and then the vamp tumbles backward right into Buffy's stake. Flawless execution. Joyce is there, confused as all get out. And then there's just this moment when Joyce is finally like, what is going on? And Buffy and Spike exchange this look before Buffy actually approaches Joyce to tell her the truth. And, like, this is, again, how did they not figure out that, like, let me make it actual.
How did it not happen sooner?
Let me make this sentence make more sense. How did this not happen sooner? Like, you know, it's just, it's so there. Like, in season 2, it's so there. And I know that there were Buffy and Spike shippers in season 2. Like, I know that the Spuffy fandom was real. And obviously we get it pretty heavily in season 4, even though it doesn't actually become, like, a realization for the characters until season 5. But, like, how did they not figure out this weird connection sooner? Because there's just, they're able to fight so in sync with each other, and they're able to understand each other with a look. Like,
yep.
They are so incredibly, like, intertwined. And this is the way that this is written. And, like, and it continues to be the way that it is written. There is just such a, like, and you mentioned it earlier, there's such a brutal honesty between these two. And that opens the door for them to understand each other in such a way that happens way earlier than I remembered it happening. Because I, like, definitely associate these two characters with, like, knowing each other completely, and that's why I really enjoy the Buffy-Spike relationship, and that's the ultimate payoff in season 7, is just how much they know each other and understand each other, and how deep that relationship is. But here they are, the first time that they're actually working together, and they're so in sync when they're fighting, and then they're able to basically communicate telepathically, because it's just, it's there.
And it is wonderful to watch. And then it's over for a really long time.
Yeah, we're gonna have
we only get one episode with Spike in season 3.
We're gonna have a Buffy Spike drought for a little bit. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. So then we're back to the hospital. Willow is talking on the phone, and she's obviously talking to Buffy and saying, you know, she's fine. Then we cut back to Buffy's house, and she's on the other end of the phone. Willow is saying she's sorry she didn't get to Angel, and Buffy's like, no, this is what is supposed to happen. I'm never going to get him back. And then we have a little scene with Joyce sitting in the living room with Spike, just sitting there. And here, you're going to enjoy this as much as I did.
Okay.
There's not any conversation in this scene yet and everything, but it says, the description of it is Joyce sits in the living room with Spike. They both are silent and uncomfortable, like it's Sunday and he's come a-courting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just wrote that it's the most delightful thing ever. That's what I wrote in my note.
And then Buffy, still on the phone, talking to Xander.
Yeah.
About where they're at and the mansion and all that. And she says she's going to hit the place at daybreak.
Yeah. This is another one of those things where, like, they have this exchange between Buffy and Xander that only serves to be an explanation for why Xander is at the mansion later. Like, that's like, it's just to set up like, oh, this is how Xander's there. I love this episode, but there's just some clunkiness every now and again where, like, I want it to be just a little bit tighter. And this is one of those things, like, when I was watching this, I was just like, this, in, like, watching it in the episode, you don't really notice, but, like, critiquing it, you're like, this is literally just here to explain why Xander knows where to find Buffy at the end of the episode. It's the only reason it exists. And, you know, you could have had at least a little bit of a tender moment here between Buffy and Xander. Something. You know, something where at least Xander could have been like, sorry about the way I acted before, and she could have been like, it's okay. You know, just something. Yeah. Something to tie it all together. Side note, in the, like, hutch that Buffy's leaning against during all of these conversations, there's a picture of what I assume is a naked baby Buffy in a pool.
Really?
And she's just having the time of her life.
I didn't even notice that.
It's a pretty cute photo, but it was an odd choice. And, like, I don't think I've ever noticed it in the 4x3, but, like, the second time I watched this, I went ahead and just watched the HD remaster because it was streaming and easier to get to. And it's a wider shot, and it's in Buffy's close-ups. Like, there's just a picture of baby Buffy just chilling in a pool wearing, like, water wings and nothing else.
Well, okay. Now I want to know who the baby is. Because it actually Sarah Michelle Gellar? Or just some random baby? Okay, so then we cut back to Buffy's living room where Joyce and Spike are making polite small talk, and Spike reminds her that she hit him with an axe one time.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, so do you live here in town? And then Buffy comes back. Now, here, I have lots to say about this scene.
Yeah.
But this is where Buffy and her mom really get into it about her being a Slayer and stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's several, like, specific parts that I will talk about when we get to them going through the conversation. But overall, I never noticed it before all the times I've watched through it until I was watching to take notes and analyze the episode, that the majority of the fight between Buffy and her mom is Buffy's fault.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way she acts. The entire time she's acting toward her mom condescending and talking down to her and refusing to explain anything and expects her mom to accept this pretty wild thing immediately. Mm-hmm. And then is just like straight out rude to her mom. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, yeah, she could have handled that a lot better.
Yeah.
Like a lot better. And it's not something that I ever thought about before when just watching it for fun.
We had discussed the ability of Joyce to handle the news that Buffy's a Slayer in previous episodes, and had the timing been different than this, where Buffy's just, her priorities are so focused on, you know, saving the world, like they should be, that she just has she doesn't have time or the patience to deal with her mother at this point. And there have been discussions about how, in a lot of ways, there's parts of this scene that feel like a role reversal, where Buffy's trying to act more like the mom and Joyce is more like the child asking the silly questions. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this scene. And I don't know the best way to tackle it. I feel like we need to just get Spike out of here. So let's talk about this little exchange between Buffy and Spike. Joyce is there in the background doing a little bits of comedic relief and the Buffy's coming out of the closet bits. Ha ha ha. Yeah. But yeah, so they make the plan, and basically, Spike is like, it's me and Drew for Angel, and Buffy's not into that. Drew has to go because she killed Kendra. Spike's very proud of Drew for killing a Slayer.
I'm like, how does Buffy know Drusilla killed Kendra? Like, at this point, so with what we've seen, how does Buffy know?
Yeah, the only, like, rationale that I had is that maybe Xander said that to her, but, like, how would Xander know, honestly?
Maybe he told her in an off-screen conversation or something. Yeah, I don't know.
So they have that exchange, and Buffy and Spike finally get to the agreement, and as Spike leaves, Buffy's like, if Giles dies, she dies, and Spike responds with this look that I choose to interpret as respect. Like, there's just this look that he gives her of just like, she's serious about that. Yep. Okay. I mean, you know, that's part of the agreement.
Actually, the scene here where Joyce, you mentioned it a minute ago, but it's where Joyce says, I mean, have you tried not being a Slayer?
That was going to be
and I'm like,
next.
Yeah, I have in my notes, I have like shades of LGBT coming out.
Yeah. So, I don't, I feel like Joss Whedon just thought that this was the funniest thing and was just laughing the entire time he was writing this dialogue for Joyce. I don't really like it that much. Like, it's a weird, forced. I like the idea of Joyce kind of being more of the not in her element one. Like, we think of, parents being the one that knows what's going on and kids are confused all the time, and there you have Buffy who's like completely in her element and Joyce has no idea what's going on and just kind of rambling in the background. Like, I like that representation of the Buffy Joyce dynamic in this early part, and I especially like it later on when Joyce snaps. Like, I love that moment. But the like coming out like subtext that they play with in this, like, I feel like it's just a little heavy-handed. And we've talked about this also with the Larry coming out. Like, there's just been a couple of times where they've done this, but it's not really handled in the right ways. And it just seems like a silly, like, Joss thought of this joke and started writing it and then just kept going with it and just thought it was the funniest thing ever and just kept going with it. He does that from time to time. He thinks things are really funny and he won't let the joke die, and the joke should really have died. It might have been okay if it was a line or two, but it is so much. It's because you didn't have a strong father figure? Really?
Yeah.
Really? So then we're gonna get to, like, the actual argument, right? Joyce is again very, like, floaty, like, oh, this is all gonna be fine, we'll just call the police and explain everything, they'll surely understand, you know, and now that we know you're innocent. And Buffy's like, oh, well, you thought I was guilty? And like, this is definitely, like, Joyce is suppressing for the longest time during all of this, like, what's actually going on. She is fully suppressing until she snaps later when Buffy says, just have another drink.
Yeah, that's a part I think Buffy's kind of rude. I mean.
And like, she's very rude in this, I agree, but I think she's dealing with, this is bigger than you finding out that I'm a Slayer. Like, there's too much going on for me to sit and actually explain this to you right now. I literally just formed an alliance with my mortal enemy in our living room so I can kill my ex-boyfriend before he destroys the world kind of serious right now. Like, so Buffy's just trying to get through this as fast as possible.
But her mom doesn't know any of that. And Buffy knows what it was like for her when she first found out, you know?
Yeah. Which is why, like, oh man, when we had the discussion earlier in the season, when Buffy's considering telling her mother the truth, and we actually have the conversation that if it was handled correctly, that could have been a really important moment for Buffy deal with what's going on, because she has been so isolated. We talked about it in the last couple of episodes, even like you keep seeing, even though she has her friends and is at events or the bronze or whatever with her friends, she's not with her friends. She's choosing to continue to isolate herself again and again and again. And here's a moment where you're right, like if the situation had been better, she might have had more perspective and been able to explain things to her mother. But it's not even just that Buffy doesn't have the time. I think she chooses to continue that isolation because that's a path that we've seen. And so it's another relationship she can sever here. And you see that, like, not only is Buffy willing to, just brush off her mom and the fact that her mom's dealing with this realization and understanding just what Buffy's been doing, but she flat out pushes Joyce. Like, she pushes Joyce back off of her when Joyce tries to keep her from leaving the house.
I have a couple of things with that. One, I want to point out that when Buffy is doing the whole "open your eyes, mom" speech, and she mentions that how many times have you washed blood out of my clothing? Yeah, she says clothing again. And it says clothes.
That's the most important takeaway from this scene.
Well, it's definitely not. It's just I always notice when she does it, especially when I read clothes in the script. It's just a Sarah Michelle Gellar thing that I think is really interesting, that she always switches it to clothing.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to go watch all her movies and see if she says clothing in place of clothes in her movies. I
just want to see one time when Sarah Michelle Gellar says clothes. Just once.
I don't even care if I see one time where she says clothes. I just want to know if she always does it.
Yeah.
Or she just did it during Buffy.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And then Buffy is talking about how it never stops. And Joyce says, "No, this is insane. You need help." Mm-hmm. And there's this whole scene doesn't really make a lot of sense when you think there is an episode where Buffy is talking to someone, I think it's Willow, and is explaining that she was given psychiatric treatment by her parents when she still lived in LA when she first got called as the Slayer, because she was talking about vampires and stuff and they thought she needed help.
Yeah. Yep.
There are very few real continuity plot holes in Buffy, and I feel like this is one. Because Joyce doesn't really seem to remember that, because she's not like, "Oh, this again, vampires, Buffy, really?" She's shocked and like, "What?"
There are so many ways that I can explain this, but I feel like I can't do any of them until we get to that episode that you're referring to.
Why? We are fully spoiled.
Because this is becoming part 2. I don't need to spend another 45 minutes talking about Buffy's history with, psychiatric facilities.
Well, okay. Well, we'll just remember that when we get there.
We will remember that. But yeah, it is something that is pointed out as a continuity error. But for me, this one isn't as big of a continuity error as the times when Buffy casually mentions that she's a Slayer and Joyce is like, "Oh, you silly," That's a much bigger, this Buffy talking about this and Joyce being like, "Well, you need help. We're gonna and Buffy's like, "I'm not crazy." That actually seems more consistent with the later conversation with Willow than a lot of the stuff that's happened.
Well, no, it's not Buffy's reaction that I think is wrong here. It's Joyce's.
Because
the way Joyce reacts.
Okay.
If Buffy has been committed before because of crazy talking about vampires and being a Slayer to get mental help, Joyce would know that. Mm-hmm. She would recognize this,
Yeah. But it's different now because Joyce actually witnessed a vampire being dusted in front of her. So that's
she still is like, "Oh no, you need help."
Joyce is also dealing with the fact that she herself feels crazy because someone turned to dust in front of her. That doesn't happen.
Good point.
So yeah, we have the Buffy speech. It's in all of this stuff that we've talked about, but I still really like it. It's really good. I really like it. The delivery.
That I have to save the world again.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
What do you think has been going on for the past 2 years? The fights, the weird occurrences. How many times have you washed blood out of my clothing and you still haven't figured it out?
Well, it stops now.
No, it doesn't stop. It never stops. Do you think I chose to be like this? Do you have any idea how lonely it is? How dangerous? I would love to be upstairs watching TV or gossiping about boys or, God, even studying. But I have to save the world. Again.
Although, I'm going to say again, I really do think that Buffy escalates this situation with her mom.
Absolutely. And that's like...
And I don't know that I feel like it was unnecessary. She had until dawn. She wasn't like in a giant rush. But
she has to lose everything in this episode, Kim. That's the point.
I know. Maybe it's because I'm a mom now. I just...
Well, and that's what I will say.
She escalates this.
That's what I will say is this time viewing it and really digging into this time around, I was just like, Joyce's reaction is totally like understandable. Like first she's in denial and then she's just like, oh, well, we'll just call the cops and they'll fix things. And then she snaps. Like that, like progression makes perfect sense to me. And I think Joyce's character reaction to all of this really works. And like, yeah, Buffy is dealing with a lot right now and just doesn't have time to deal with Joyce. And it's that role reversal of like Buffy, saying just have another drink is almost like a parent telling their kids, just go play with your toys, like just, I don't have time for you right now kind of dynamic that's happened here. Yeah, it is designed to be frustrating in a lot of ways, but it works. Like I totally buy that both of those characters would act that way in this scene. Like I think you're right that Buffy doesn't handle it right, but I believe that Buffy wouldn't handle that right completely.
Well, and then we get the line where Joyce says, if you walk out that door, don't come back. Mm-hmm. And Buffy takes her literally. Yeah. And walks out the door.
I'm glad that they actually took the time to show Joyce after Buffy leaves. We've had a couple of times where they if they just lingered on Joyce a little bit longer and let some acting take place to show that Joyce kind of is a little hot-headed and says things in the moment that she regrets instantly afterwards. This is one of those scenes where they actually took the time to show that, which I think is a consistent thing in her character. We just don't always see this moment after. And so we get Joyce is just yelling at Buffy all the time. Rah, rah, rah. It's just well, no, she's dealing with a child that has a lot of things going on, and she isn't always aware of those things going on. And sometimes she yells at her kid and then she regrets it afterwards because that's something that parents do sometimes. But they actually showed it here, which I appreciate.
Yeah. And then we're back in the hospital and discussing about Buffy's going to take care of things and I wish we could help. And Willow decides she's going to try and give Angel's soul back again. And they try to talk her out of it because she's sick and everything. And there's a little scene in the script book that's not in the show during this part where Willow basically tells Cordy, who's trying to get her not to do the spell, that if Cordelia helps her cast the spell, Cordelia can give her a complete makeover when it's all over. Oh. And Cordelia's like, really? You're not just saying that? Which I think is a nice little comic thing in this scene. But Willow, convinces them that they can help Buffy by giving Angel his soul back. And she gives all of them tasks to do.
Yeah. In charge Willow. I love in charge Willow. Even from her hospital bed, she is in command. Yep. And she has her resolve face. I love her resolve face. It's so good. I also delight in the little bit of acting from Seth Green where he's just what in the heck is happening? He's just processing this.
Okay, I pretty much missed out on some stuff, didn't I? Because this is all making the kind of sense that's not.
And then Willow, very, very important part here that they finally resolve in season 7. But Willow tells Xander to go to Buffy and tell her what Willow is doing so that she can try to stall. And Xander goes after telling Willow to be careful.
Yes. I will have more to say on this later in this episode.
Yeah.
So, Giles and Angel torture. Woohoo! Angel is, again, persuading Giles to tell him, what he needs to know. And Giles, in true badass form, says, in order to be worthy, you must perform the ritual in a tutu.
Yeah.
An angel mad.
Oh, yeah. He says, someone get the chainsaw. And then Spike tells him not to lose his temper and kind of tries to be logical with, if you cut him up, you'll never know, and comes up with a plan. And I love this because this just shows how literally crazy Drusilla is and how she just does not care about anything, really. She's just in there being her crazy self in her own little world, because Spike has her come over there and play a game where she pretends to be Jenny to get the answer out of Giles. But this entire time, she could have done this.
Mm-hmm.
She was there. She was watching the torture, just hanging out, being Drusilla. And she could have offered from the very beginning or at any time to do what she does to get the information.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, she just watches Angel play with him. She's just crazy.
She's just like, this is fun. I like this.
Yeah.
I never really put that together, but it totally makes sense for Drew's character.
Yeah. Because Spike's just like, hey, Drusilla, you want to play a game? And she immediately goes and starts.
Yeah,
she knows.
She knows what
she could have done it the whole time.
So from the do you want to play a game, it does cut to Buffy at the library. She kind of walks around Kendra's outline. I'm gonna stop here for a second. And I feel like I didn't address this enough in Becoming Part 1. And I didn't want to address it like immediately in the front end craziness because I wanted to talk about the wacky cops. But I'm going to address it here. Kendra is criminally underused and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate all of this. And what I will say is that God bless the Buffy fandom, because they will forever recognize Kendra for the true Slayer she is and how awesome she is. She's like one of those that if they had actually taken the time to develop would have been really great. And they brought her back to have a significant death in this episode, in this two-parter, and I'm just like, ugh, upsets me. Okay, that has been said now. So Snyder's here, also being like the most Snyder that Snyder has ever Snydered.
Yeah. And he basically tells her she's expelled. And again, he can't just do that. Like,
he doesn't know what a school board is. Don't worry about it.
Well, even a school board, like, he can't do that. He does all these things that he should not have the power to do as a principal. Like, principal's got the superintendent and then the school board and all these people over him, and he can't just suspend or like expel a student because
he feels like it.
She was present at a murder scene, and he doesn't like her. This would never happen. And like next season when she comes back, she has to do all this stuff to get back into school. It's just, he can't do this. And Buffy pulls the sword out of the bag and says, you never ever got a single date in high school, did you? And he's like, your point?
She just leaves. And then Snyder giddily calls the mayor on a cell phone. What? There's cell phones?
Well, this was 1998.
No. Cell phones don't exist in Buffy until season 7. The one exception was supposed to be in the pilot episode with Cordelia. But no, I was wrong. There's the cell phone here. When did this happen?
I mean, there were cell phones in 1998.
No, not in the Buffy. They don't exist until season 7, Kimberly. You're not understanding.
Okay.
I have a pet peeve. I have a pet peeve. Buffy should have a cell phone. Like, Buffy should have a cell phone.
Yeah, like, why did Buffy and Giles not have cell phones to communicate with each other?
As soon as cell phones were invented, the Watchers Council should have been like, we're getting that for our Slayers.
I had a cell phone in 1998. I was in college and had one. It was a big chunky Nokia, but I had one. Mm-hmm. When he calls the mayor, this is my issue with this. He tells the mayor, I have good news. But why? Why does he have good news?
Because
why is this good news?
Buffy's expelled and now she has all this free time during the day. exactly what the mayor wants.
Yeah, she's just because you expelled her doesn't mean she's leaving Sunnydale. And we've already established that there are other schools. There's some kind of weird prep school. There's a Catholic high school. There's Cordelia once mentions like another public high school. There's a bunch of other schools in Sunnydale, which I think is strange because it's so small. But she can go to another school. She's not necessarily leaving. There's no reason that he should be telling the mayor he has good news. I mean, come on now. It has a college.
Truthfully, though, this is the most Snyder that Snyder has ever Snydered.
Yes, very much. Then we're back at Giles and Drusilla. Mm-hmm. I want to point out, this is the first time I guess we saw a little bit of it in Becoming Part 1, but this is where we realize that Drusilla has a lot of other powers besides just visions. Mm-hmm. She can read minds. She can give somebody a vision. And then in Becoming Part 1, we discovered she can hypnotize someone.
Yeah.
So, like, she has a lot more powers than...
I would have been fine if they just kept doing this. Like, just constantly just, like, throw random powers that Drusilla has that we never knew about.
A new power every episode she's in.
She just has all the powers.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. But basically, she's talking to Giles, and she gives him a vision of Jenny.
She has this moment where she, like, has her hand on Giles's head and says, "Let's see what's inside." And she, like, immediately realizes. And it's just like, of course. Like, it's just, again, Juliet Landau. Bravo. But this moment of realizing, oh yeah, this is the obvious thing that I can do. And then she has this moment of hypnosis, and then when she puts her hand over his eyes and pulls it away and reveals that it's Jenny. And I love this performance because somehow Robia Lamort plays Drusilla. Like, I really feel like this is still Drusilla when I'm watching this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
I see that. I can very much see that.
She's there coaxing the information out of Giles, making him feel comfortable, talking about how they'll be together finally, and he reveals that they have to get Angel away, and then Drusilla puzzles it out and it's just like Angel himself, he's the key, and Giles confirms that it's his blood, and then Drusilla shushes him and starts to kiss him, and it pans over to show that it is in fact actually now Drusilla again, that was all in Giles's head. And man, yeah. Drew, love you, girl. You know how to get into the character.
Yeah.
Angel has his dumb moment, and then says kill him, and Spike saves the day again, saying what if he's lying?
Yeah. He's definitely keeping up his end of the bargain. Yeah. Like, we need to keep him alive in case he's lying. And Angel's like, yeah, that's a good point. I like working with, it's like old times working with you again. Mm-hmm. And then they realize Drusilla is still making out with Giles.
Because of course she is.
Drusilla. Well, of course she is, yeah. And she says, sorry, I was in the moment. And Giles realizes that it was Drusilla and he was tricked, and he just looks terrified. He does that really well.
Yeah,
that scene.
It's a nice subtle shift in his, like, cause he's still in that moment of bliss, and then it just starts to like dawn on him what has happened.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
And then we are back in Giles' apartment, and Buffy is talking to Whistler again and asking what he means that the sword isn't enough. I guess he did know she was going to come back.
Yeah. So
Whistler finally actually gives some information instead of being all cryptic and vague.
Yeah.
He actually says, this is what Angel's trying to do. This is what could happen. This is what you have to do. Then he tells her to, do it fast, because the faster you kill Angel, the easier it'll be for you. And Buffy says, don't worry about me. I can deal. I got nothing left to lose. And she leaves. And then Whistler says, wrong, kid. You got one more thing. And I wonder, did he know? Like, did Whistler know that Angel would get his soul back at the last minute?
That's not what I read that being in regards to.
Oh, how do you read it?
I will talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
So yeah, I do have a lot to say about this next scene. So, sunrise at the mansion, Buffy walking up, Xander jumps out, he's got a big rock, she gives him a steak, blah this, blah that. He's supposed to get Giles out, and she says she can't protect him, she's gonna be too busy killing, and shockingly, Xander actually listens to that, and he doesn't, like, come back and try to help Buffy, which is impressive.
Yeah.
Good character growth for Xander. And then that's all,
it all disappears later.
when Xander's like, Willow wanted me to tell you, and then a beat, kick his ass.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's interesting because this is one of those things where I can imagine endlessly what Buffy's reaction would be if Xander, like, actually said, Willow's trying the curse again. She wants you to stall so she can give it another go. And in a lot of ways, the way that Buffy's been acting, the things that Buffy's been saying, the resolve she's had in so many of these instances, the way she dealt with Joyce earlier, Buffy is so resigned to killing Angel at this moment that I'm not even entirely sure, had Xander come up and just flat out said, Willow's gonna try the curse again, that Buffy wouldn't have just continued the direction that she went anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I think that getting her to this point where she could kill Angel took so long, and she's just, she has that moment earlier where she says, I've just got to accept that he's never going to be who he was. Like, I'm never going to have that Angel back again. So it's interesting. You have this moment of Xander having this pause and this thinking about it. And I think a lot of times people think Xander did this for selfish reasons because he hates Angel and he doesn't want Angel to get his soul back. And, like, truth be told, there might have been a lot more working through his brain at that point, trying to figure out what's the best, like, what's the actual thing that's going to get us through this, what's going to keep Buffy alive, what's going to save the world. Like, there could have been a lot more working there. Ultimately, though, the truth is, Willow wanted Buffy to have this information, and Xander should have delivered this message and respected his two friends enough to allow, this truthful communication to take place. And this is just further proof of why Buffy needs a cell phone.
Yeah. And she could have had one.
Yeah.
Because it was 1998.
We have proof in this very episode that they did exist. No, I just don't, this has been talked to death, and I honestly, still to this day, I don't know how I feel about this choice. Like, of the things that I hate Xander for, this isn't really one of them.
Yeah, but this is the one you're supposed to hate him for.
Yeah, and I don't, I don't hate him for this, and I don't know why, but I'm okay with this. I see enough in that moment to where I can rationalize reasons why Xander is making this decision, and it's not just because, I hate Angel and I don't want Angel and Buffy to be back together. Like, I think, really when he thinks about it, he's like, Willow's weak, she might not be able to pull this off, Buffy might stall just to try for this last bit of hope, and that could get her killed. This is all, this is down to the wire. This is the end of the world we're talking about, and we don't really need to play with any of these chances that we know are, very low likely to be successful. I mean, this is a major spell, Willow's first spell. She's attempted it to a degree, but doesn't really, have enough experience with magic to know. Xander himself has had horrible backfires from spells. I could see there be a scenario here where Xander is making this decision because he's been thinking about this the entire time he's been walking towards the mansion to meet Buffy. And this moment here was when he made the final choice to not actually tell her, because he's been weighing all of these different options, what is the right move here? And I think that this is one of the more, deep moments for Xander when it comes to really what's going on.
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
I've never actually considered that he wasn't doing it selfishly.
Yeah. And I think, like, because there's so much Xander in so many other parts of the show, like, it's easy to just make this be a selfish thing. But, like, realistically, when you break it down, like, he felt like this was the logical choice. Like, this was the most likely scenario in which Buffy got out of this alive. Because, you know, I mean, I would be there thinking just, like, Willow is literally in a hospital bed trying to cast a very high-powered spell with little to no magic experience. And this is what I'm supposed to tell Buffy to, you know, stall killing this vampire that's trying to end the world for, you know? Like, I can understand the logic behind that. But yeah, people hate Xander for this moment. And I hate Xander for a lot of other moments, but I don't hate him at all for this moment.
I mean, he's got a lot of worse moments.
Yeah.
But he's got good ones too.
Yeah.
I don't hate Xander. I'm one of those that just doesn't hate him.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get into this now. Angel is performing the ritual. Willow is also performing the curse. Angel slices his hand. Buffy decapitates a vampire lackey and says, "Hello, lover."
Yeah.
It's so good. And yeah, it's just like, I don't have time for you. You don't have a lot of time left. And Angel, again, talking it up. You really think you're going to be able to take us all? And Buffy says, no, I don't. As Spike stands up behind Angel and starts beating the crap out of him. Like, and this was the moment that I was just like, logically, he has every kind of advantage in this scenario, and if they actually wanted to be efficient and just take care of business, he would have just staked Angel, and they would have been done. And it'd be like, good, cool, job well done. I'll take Drew, Giles is in there, all right, see you later, bye. But no, he wants to beat the crap out of Angel.
Yeah. And the way Drusilla looks at Spike when he stands up and attacks Angel, it's just, oh my gosh, she is just, it's like shock and rage at the same time on her face. Like, did not see that coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the little build-up when she finally tackles Spike, like, you could just, the noise she makes is so great.
Yeah.
After Drew tackles Spike off of Angel, Buffy's distracted with the lackey vamp. We see Xander run in. He punches the vamp with his broken hand, which seems painful, but, you know, adrenaline. Buffy grabs a stake from a broken piece of furniture, and there's a bunch of, you know, facing off going on, and, like, Angel's just, like, gets up, he's fine, and goes and finishes the ritual, because everybody forgot about that part.
Yeah. Spike tells Drusilla he doesn't want to hurt her, but I will, and then, like, appears to choke her unconscious, which, you know, she doesn't have breath. So
yeah, that's one of those
shouldn't have worked.
That's one of those things that we just ignore and assume it's...
Yeah, they use it when they want to, and on both sides of that.
Drusilla's crazy.
True.
Maybe she's just like, oh, he's hugging me really hard. I'm going to play dead.
Then Xander goes to get Giles, and Giles is like, you're not real. You're not real. And Xander's like, yeah, I am. Let's go. And Giles says, no, they're tricking me. They're making me think that people I want are here. And Xander's like, then why would they make you see me? And Giles is like, yep, let's go.
That's great.
And they are gone.
Yeah, Xander listened to his instructions and followed them precisely. It's amazing.
Yep.
That is perhaps the biggest, like, misstep in this episode, because Xander would have totally ran back and been like, I'm gonna save you, Buffy. No.
And gotten hurt, yeah. And then we have the sword fight between Angel and Buffy, which I have to say is one of the best things I've ever seen. Although if you look really close, you can tell when it's Angel's stunt double.
Oh, yeah. Like, every wide shot, you're just like, those are stunt doubles. But, you know, it's still great. It's still fabulous.
It's more obvious with Angels, I think. But it's still great.
Yeah.
It's still a great fight. It's still an amazing scene.
And one thing I will say, this is, I believe, a James Marsters quote. I'm going to attribute it to James Marsters. James Marsters said this, it's official. But James Marsters was talking about his stunt double and how, you know, he's as much the character as James Marsters is. Like, you know, the stunt double makes choices in their performance just like James Marsters would make choices in his performance when playing Spike. I think the exact quote James Marsters said, I'm very convinced it was James Marsters, because he was talking about his stunt double and he's like, he's not my stunt double, he's Spike. And I'm just like, nice. So anytime I see the actual stunt doubles at this point, I'm just like, it's still Buffy and Angel. Even though it's not Sarah and David, it's still Buffy and Angel. I will hop on that bandwagon and totally support that way of looking at it. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sword fight, fabulous, because it's fun. It's a sword fight, but it's such a great narrative tool in this moment, because as it starts out, you know, there is some pretty evenly matched, but towards the front end, Angel mostly has the advantage, and we see that it continues to go that way. And then after the turn, when Buffy has her line of empowerment, then Buffy has the advantage. And I love when shows do this, but they echo each other's injuries. Buffy gets a little slice on the arm, Angel gets a slice on his hand. Like, there's things that happen that when Buffy was being overpowered and got injured in the front end of the fight, Buffy reciprocated in the latter half of the fight when she had the upper hand. So it's great. I love the sword fight.
Yeah, it's choreographed very well. So then we switch back to the hospital room, and Willow is doing the curse and kind of gets taken over by the spell and starts speaking in Romanian, and Oz and Cordelia are just like, hey, yeah, what's going on here? But it's the first time we see Willow taken over by magic, and it like going through her instead of her doing it, you know?
Yeah. And her just the staring blankly as she's doing it, and then like she gets like violent shakes towards the end and stuff like that. Like, you can already see that as much as we learn how powerful Willow is and as much control as Willow has over magic, magic has like so much control over Willow. And it's interesting to see, like, this is her first spell, and it's like magic chooses her. Magic's just like, yeah, you my girl. Yeah. Okay, so here's the moment, Kim. Angel is approaching Buffy. She has lost her weapon. Spike has his little funny bit where he's just like, God, he's gonna kill her, and then shrugs and walks off because it's Spike.
Yeah, but like, Spike's whole purpose was that he didn't want the world to end.
No, his whole purpose was he wanted Drew back.
Right, but he also didn't want the world to end. And so, like, with his course of action, the world's still going to end.
Yeah, but he has Drew back.
Like, he can't outrun it by leaving Sunnydale.
Listen, Spike is fight or flight sometimes, and he chose flight that time. Anyway, the iconic. I'll play the sound clip because you gotta.
That's everything, huh? No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left?
Me.
That is the last thing she has left to lose. That is the one thing that she has left, is to lose herself. That is why, in this moment, had the curse not happened, and Buffy had retained that empowerment and just killed Angelus, and not had to have killed Angel, I think that this episode might have ended differently, because Buffy was able to keep herself in this moment. She was able to find that power within herself to do what had to be done. But then when she realized that Angel was back and a Cathla is still opening, she still did what had to be done, but at the cost of losing herself, which is why we have Anne at the beginning of season 3. She literally gives herself up. That's what she loses. She loses herself and every last bit of her identity, which is why she picks up the alias and is no longer Buffy after this episode. That is...
And the way they did this is just heart-wrenching.
Oh, yeah.
Angel gets his soul back, and she's excited and, like, has some hope. She's like, you know, there's some hope. And then she sees a Cathla behind him start to open, and she realizes... Yeah. And it's just, she does this so well.
Oh, yeah.
And I really can't watch this scene without crying.
And I wrote it like, you wrote it as hope. I wrote it as immense relief. This is like a show of, this is all of this weight that Buffy has been carrying of having to kill Angel. And then she has this immense relief, and then it's completely there again. As soon as she realizes that Acathla is, in fact, waking up. Man, what a great performance. I freaking love Sarah Michelle Gellar. And yeah, the one thing I will say is that I looked at this very closely. I watched it very, very closely. And not once did I see Angel signal Buffy with his eyes. So I'm pretty sure that Angel was lying to Spike in season 5 of Angel.
What?
I beat you with my Buffy references. It's great.
You did. You're going to have to explain that one.
In season 5 of Angel, Spike and Angel are arguing about, like, how many times they saved the world, and Angel says that he stopped Acathla, and Spike is like, Buffy killed you, and he's just like, yeah, but I signaled her with my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it very he doesn't do that.
No. It was a joke. That's... Yeah, I did not pick up that reference.
Oh no! What I'll actually say, the more serious thing is that you have the gorgeous Echo. Everybody knows this Echo, but is the gorgeous Echo of when Liam was turned, where she says, "Close your eyes," and kills him. Man, I love it. I love the close your eyes. I love the hello lover earlier. I love those little echoes that tie these episodes together. They're great. And yeah, she watches as he's pulled into hell. She pauses a moment, and then she just breaks down in like the most gut-wrenching way, where you know what's about to happen, but like it cuts off, like she walks out of frame, it cuts off before you really get to see it happen. And I really love that choice of editing, where you can see just how wrecked she is, but you don't ever actually see her cry. Like full-on cry. She returns home and leaves her mother a note. Joyce reads it and cries. The Scoobies are outside of the school. No word from Buffy. Willow thinks the spell worked. And they discuss that she probably just needs some time. Maybe she's even with Angel. But she'd have to come back eventually because, you know, they still have school. And we see Buffy watching them as they enter the school. She walks away with a bag and sad overalls. And we see her sitting in the bus.
The overalls are an odd choice, I think.
We see her sitting on a bus as she leaves town. Shot pounds down to show the Sunnydale sign, come back soon. And all of this last section is accompanied by Full of Grace by Sarah McLachlan. And yeah.
In the script book, it just says that sad Sarah McLachlan song plays.
Perfect.
Like they knew they were going to do that. They just didn't know which one yet.
So, what do you even say about this?
Yeah.
I was just trying to get through all of that as fast as possible so we could come back and actually discuss it. But now that we were to the point of discussing it, I'm just like, what do you say about this? It's so gut-wrenching in every way.
Oh, yeah.
I love the narrative through line that I was discussing earlier about Buffy has lost everything, and you have this moment of, like, empowerment where she's just like, I still have myself. And then it gets to this final exchange. You know, she's there. She's kissing Angel passionately. She's so relieved. And she still carries through with what she knows she has to do. She still recognizes that that's who she is. But because who she is led her to having to make that decision to kill her true love, you know, the one person she wants more than anything, then she just flat out rejects that part of herself too. And she refuses to be who she is in that moment following Angel's death. She is very much Buffy the Vampire Slayer when she chooses to kill Angel and make that final call. But then at that point, it's very much echoes the conversation that she has with Giles in The Gift, that there are certain things that if they happen, she'll just quit. And this is one of those moments where Buffy just quits. Yeah. She is no longer Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She is Anne the waitress the next time we see her. Yeah. And like she is Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the me line up until she stabs Angel and sends him back to hell. And then at that moment, she chooses not to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer anymore because it's just too much. It's too much to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If those are the choices you have to make, it goes back to Lie to Me, which is why Lie to Me is a really important episode, is that, you know, you don't have a good choice, but you have a choice. And Buffy makes that choice to kill Angel because it is the, you know, the choice that she has, but then she chooses afterwards to no longer be the person that has to deal with those choices for a good chunk of time. And man, I will continue that conversation a lot in Anne, because this is again another finale and season premiere that tie in together really well. Like, I forgot how much When She Was Bad and Prophecy Girl tied together. I have not forgotten how much Becoming and tie together when it comes through this line. Woof.
It's a heart-wrenching episode.
Oh man.
And I wish I could remember what it felt like watching that the first time. Mm-hmm. Like, not knowing that Angel was going to come back, because, like, you know, every other time you watch it, you know he comes back.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it felt like the first time. Mm-hmm. Like, Angel's gone. There's no more Angel.
Yeah.
You know?
I love my experience with Buffy that I had, but I watched Buffy all kinds of out of order. And sometimes I wish that I could just, like, wipe this slate blank and start from the beginning and watch through it without knowing everything that I knew when I first watched through it. Because, yeah, I knew Angel had a spinoff and lived beyond this when I first watched this episode. Like, I was fully aware of all of that.
Yeah. I wasn't, because I started watching it, like, as it aired mid-season 2. Mm-hmm. I got to experience watching it with Adam, because a couple of years after we got married, I finally convinced him to watch it with me. And at that point, he did know that Angel at least comes back, because he knew that there was an Angel series, and he knew there was a musical episode. Mm-hmm. But that's about all he knew from what I had told him.
Yeah.
So I got to watch him see it all, and, like, we watched all 7 seasons on Hulu. That way we'd watch 2 or 3 every night. So I got to experience him watching that, and I swear sometimes I was watching him more than I was watching the show.
Oh, yeah.
To, like, something would be about to happen, and I'd be, like, just staring at him, and he finally asked me to stop, because he's like, every time you look at me, I know something big's going to happen.
That's great. Unintentionally spoiling the entire show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, God, this episode, man. It is, you said in the front end, it's definitely in my top 10.
Yeah.
And
I think this one makes my top 5.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm not sure if it's quite that high for me, but man, it's definitely in my top 10. And it is the conclusion to, in my opinion, the most iconic Buffy storyline, which is the season 2 Angelus Arc. Like, that is, for me, the most Buffy that Buffy has ever been. And it's not necessarily my favorite story arc or my favorite season, but it is, like, we're done with season 2, and at the beginning of season 2, I said, this is the most iconic season. And it's a lot of people's favorites. I've seen a lot of polls recently on different, like, Buffy groups where people vote on their favorite season, and season 2 wins a lot of the time. Season 2 is super important in the foundational role it plays in the rest of the series, because season 1's fun. I don't have any problems with season 1. It's like, a lot of people really struggle through season 1. I enjoy season 1 quite a bit. I like the campy side of season 1. But season 2 is when Buffy becomes Buffy. Buffy becomes the show that we all know and love, and really becomes that iconic, timeless show.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are now at the end of season 2. And
Yes.
this is a really good season, and I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Except for Go Fish. We could skip that episode. We will be back with a new season of Buffy, which I am excited about as well. It is also a very, very good and well-loved season of Buffy. And
Yes.
it will also feature a lot of conversation about this two-parter, I am sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's practically a 3-part episode.
It's practically a 3-part
because
episode.
Anne should be a part of it.
That was our episode. Thank you all so much for listening. And this is where we say bye.
Bye.
We're going to just talk about random stuff forever if we keep down the track. I was this close to starting to talk about season 5. I was like, nope, pull it back. Stop. We'll get there.